Hello everyone. Very quickly I would like to talk about inner work and what it really means to contribute. And so if we were to look at the most compassionate person in the world, in other words, if you were some human being that you were born and you're like, okay, let me see where helping takes you. You know, everyone's doing some kind of job. Let me see where the peak of being compassionate as a being to life takes you. And if you follow that, you will begin seeing that transcendence becomes a very profound ability to be your future before it's happening. You begin to notice many things. You begin to see that psychology is not it's not here to make you an intruder or make someone intrude you. It is simply there to show that humanity is an existential communication, and how much we choose to see the world as connected or not, we know it, we are it, and so our movement is it. With consciousness, we're always perceiving reality and in the beauty of our gaze. Now, when you begin seeing that if you were to build something, if like right now I am building something, and as I am building something and I'm working with these metal parts, I begin to see that every beginning act, every construction, every movement has to find some aspect before to understand how that thing is moving. So if I was to go give a talk and I had no idea how to speak, perhaps I would go observe those who knew and see what they knew was something that you could never have. And so they show you great leaders and they inspire you because you cannot be them, but you want to be them because you want to contribute as vast as them. But their contribution was their whole life. And how much are you willing to, in a sense, forget all the stories and be aware of your totality and take yourself up to pedestals that are no longer shaped? You're here to understand, and that is fundamentally the greatest thing that happens to the human being. So if you try to make your understanding suddenly compassionate, if you begin making reality a beautiful tune, how fast would the fingers of this piano player be playing? Is randomity chaos for an ordered world? Or is it an allowance to discover greater order? So as the individual consciousness of man begins to engage, as you begin to see that your memory is relevant because there's something perceiving it now, and if you forget things, then the profoundest aspect of your reality is now. And so have you understood the now? Have you understood what is the essence? What is this energy? Do you want to see energy written in a textbook? Do you want that definition? Do you want a dictionary definition? Or do you want to break your understanding and take your experience to a point where you're no longer standing under anything? You're seeing brighter lights, and these lights always began with the ability for you to be the light. And so if we find that it is a light wave, let us say, that has brought form into the eyes of the beholder, that which is held is a gaze of continuation. And so if I am an eternal being, you as an eternal being must see suddenly in an instant that if you want eternity, then every other human being wants, and if every moment of being in conception wants, this whole plane of existence, this physicality is simply built for its inspiration to move. And so if you begin to question what is inspiring your world rather than what is inspiring you who's interpreting your world, you will give yourself the clarity of no longer being lost to your own ideas, but to actually hear where everything is. There's great wonder beyond subjectivity that cannot explain itself. We are always tempted to listen to what we think we know. But when we look at those thoughts which we think are so solid, when we look at all that externality, all that wealth and abundance that is right in front of us, we begin seeing that the nature of reality is actually the nature of your vision. Because there is somewhere you have to begin with, and that is the ability of a being with a body. That you're given position, you're given reference, and now that you have reference, what must be done? Well, perhaps when one sees a piano and does not play it, once they suddenly go in a world where pianos seemed like a distant memory, they would have wondered, gosh, why did my fingers not move in that way? And they would look at existential design. And so what I mean by that is that the apocalypse, before it even comes externally, as many people think, you're going through many apocalypses every day. Do you know? An apocalypse is the breaking of one reality. But an apocalypse especially suggests the breaking of an external reality based on how our culture has understood it, that the world is going to change. But reality is not the whole world. Because how you're observing existence really suggests what coexistence means. And so are you coexisting now in the manner where you have choice? Or are you the choice chosen by everything else to be present now? So if my face is here, it is better than the faceless. And how dare you communicate that an existential form is wrong? Or even right? Because we don't need, there could be arrogance and there could be illusion in a joy that is blind. So that you may sit in a monastery your whole life and not even understand why you're there until you step out of it. So you must really see that it is your ability to be dynamic and to perceive the movements of reality in your gaze that suggests the ability that will come to you to lead you to the purpose that you shall become, and you have always been. Because you don't need fantasies. Fantasies will be reality once you get an existential sensitivity that suggests an idea was never an idea. In the sense that it projected imagery in front of you. That when a speaker spoke, his words opened worlds, aligned to the dictation of how one being has seen senses, to then communicate always within the senseless. Now, where compassion takes you is that it shows you a mountain. There's first a setting where you can be a compassionate person, that the Dalai Lama is someone, that all those gurus are shaped, but you will see that it is the ability of a human being to be present and to observe that presence beyond form that suggests his realization, because his real eyes are not found within the sensory perception in a sense. And so even me communicating this as sensory perception is giving it a flavor which does not need to be there. You must realize that this is simply how communication has evolved for mankind, but it does not mean that our limited communication now is not receiving great ideas. So what that means is consciousness knows how to play the game, and so what that means is that you are never playing, but everything's being played. It's a sense of paradoxical realization where it's like all those steps forward you thought in your desires and all those wealth and abundance and that kind of lifestyle you wanted, where you suddenly realize, wait a minute, maybe perhaps before I chose all these actions, there was a deeper gaze waiting for me. So that deeper gaze is no longer waiting in that sense. That deeper gaze is your realization that you exist and you're a moment of being. And so how profound you are depends on how much you can see an integrated world, a collective world, and let your individualization be inspired by everything. I walk not learning from teachers, but learning from every aspect that I consider, because it is my perception that gives me the form that can even contain knowledge. And so if knowledge moves to shapeless dimensions, man was never here, but at the same time present in ways where he could always explain in a different world. It is now time for us to move beyond us. Our unition, or our sense of being united existentially as the human being, must come in our affection and compassion, not just the human form. Because we are not even treating objects like how a human would treat anything. Do you know? So it's as if it's like outside of the rationality and certain state of mind, you need to be logical, you know? You will see that what happens is chaotic blending. That once a system is about to fail, all worlds come into it because it is reaching out. What that means is that existentially, the essence and the nature of this plane doesn't go out without a fight. But it is not a fight which you are fighting. And so you realize, if you realize this, the idea of you will dissolve. So you will see that on some, let us say, platforms of existence, beings co-create in the sense of being the world. And so you would see it's as if like me talking to you right now and you hearing, to us is like, okay, some guy's talking, but to perhaps the vision that is the creation kept in its creator dynamic, will begin seeing that we are simply the communication for the universe to see itself. We are transparent. And so if we make an idea, that idea observes itself through the nature of our being. And the nature of our being is unspeakable. And if we were to consider dimensions, it would be multidimensional. But you must see that when you begin looking at the origin of things, you begin also seeing that many problems were unnecessary, because the fundamental truth of how reality was kept was left unexplored by you. And so uncharted territories must never hide the great understandings of man. Arrogance is when you do not have an ability to tolerate the reality of another aspect of creation. If you are tolerant, if you respect, if you begin seeing the highest value you see within yourself, within others, then something crazy happens. Something insane happens. You become a madman who was always given everything. It's as if you thought by doing a good action you were going to receive some good future. No, by doing this good action, by doing the act of self-awareness, you begin dissolving into that reality. Your subtler senses of mind open up, and so creation becomes a co-creation never witnessed before, but it's as if the novelty has found a staircase towards a simultaneous reality where time and space were never segmented. And so there is no illusion other than playful co-creation in the abstraction that a God needs to move even beyond its name. That even the God must move beyond the clouds that keep it there. Much blessings and namaste.